Hey guys, welcome back to some more Assassin's Creed Origins on the PS4. Now, today they have released the new tour mode, so I've always had a thing for ancient Egypt because it's always been a culture that's been surrounded in mystery in part, so it's always been a kind of an interest to me over the years. So when I saw this, I thought, yeah, gonna give it a go. So without further ado, we're gonna do a couple of tours because some are short, some are medium, and some are pretty long. So we're going to do some tours and then see how it goes. And I'll just see what all this is because I wanted to get the loading screen out of the way because it was it was a kind of long loading screen, so I just wanted to get that out of the way because nobody wants to be sitting at a loading screen for ages.
Welcome to
Discovery tour.
Discovery
Oh,
Tour
happy
by
quiet.
Assassin's Creed Ancient Egypt.
Guided tours will take you through majestic landmarks and acquaint you with ancient Egyptian something. I enjoy the vast panoramas of this beautiful country through the eyes of your eagle, or use an avatar to climb to the very top of the Great Pyramid. Navigate a boat along the banks of the River Nile, or ride a horse across the deserts and lush, fertile lands. And when a view truly captures your fascination, take a picture using photo mode and share it with your friends. We hope you enjoy this experience. I will, because it's Assassin's Creed Origins. Of course, I'll enjoy it. So, I don't think you play as Bayek. You can pick one of, I think it's about 20 different characters to play as. So, I think this may be Aya. Yeah. Oh, there's Booty. Use left stick to move your character and start the tour. Okay, and one thing with this is there's no combat, animals aren't, well, okay, the birds just made me out to be a liar. Well, the animals aren't supposed to freak out when you go near them, but those birds did. Damn you birds. Alexandria, planning of a city, number of stations 8, region Alexandria, learn about the design and layout of the city of Alexandria. Estimated time, 6 minutes. Start the tour, follow the trail
Welcome
to
to
the next
Alexandria, planning of the
station.
city.
There you go.
Alexander's plan to build his great city began with a verse from Homer's Odyssey.
Turn this TV up a bit
There is,
quiet.
in front of Egypt, in the sea with many swells, an island called Pharos. Guided by these clues, Alexander the Great founded his future city at the western end of the Nile Delta. Though Alexander considered this location ideal for his great city, it presented considerable challenges. Too difficult to access during storms, the surrounding swamps threatened disease, and the limestone soil prevented the growth of healthy crops. However, due to the influence of his mentor Aristotle, Alexander the Great recognized that the true value was its strategic emplacement. Alexander knew that in controlling Pelusium to the east, Memphis to the south, and his crowning glory Alexandria to the west, he would create a triangular stronghold, allowing him to control the entire delta while giving him access to the Mediterranean.
Okay.
The Great Walls of Alexandria had a humble beginning. Lacking chalk to outline the future city's foundations, architects were forced to use flour instead. Clouds of migrating birds swept down and ate the flour, erasing the plans. This prompted Alexander to seek guidance from the oracles, who reassured him that his future city was destined to feed a large population. Excavations led by Mahmud Bey el-Falaki in the 19th century revealed that the wall enclosure measured approximately 5.2 kilometers in length and 2.2 kilometers in width. It was roughly 9 meters in height. These formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks, including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault.
Oh my god, that's a rare thing. They actually went past me and they didn't freak out, those guys, because normally in the main game, when the guys go past you, they just freak out, screaming at you for no reason, because they suck. Excuse me, person. Thank you. Nice hat there, sir. It's not.
Alexandria's principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized functionality, with wide, straight roads and canals running beneath them. Alexander recognized the military value of the city's design. The wide, parallel streets gave him optimal surveillance of the city, while allowing the unobstructed flow of troops. A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean's north port down to Lake Mareotis to the south. This thoroughfare acted as an unobstructed link for commercial trade and travel between the two ports. Many of the streets were bordered with grand buildings and parks, including Canopic Street, with its impressive gate bordering the eastern end. Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village. Upon its completion, the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this, the name Alexandria would remain.
And that's the first tour complete. Welcome to Discovery Tour by Assassin's Creed. You can now explore ancient Egypt at your own pace or select options to choose a new tour by opening the pause menu. Okay. Oh boy, that's a lot of tours. So there's 20 in Egypt overall, I think. 16 to do with pyramids, 14 for Alexandria, 20 for the daily life, and then 5 for the Romans. Let's look at the characters because... Oh no, we can play as Bayek. Okie dokie. So we have Bayek, Aya, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, William Miles, Layla Hassan. Oh god, I can't read that name. Ptolemy, is it? Ptolemy something. Kemur Siwa, Bayek's son, Shadia of that name, Rita the Merchant, Hasina Yemu, actor, Egyptian woman, Egyptian nobleman, Egyptian noblewoman, Roman soldier, Greek nobleman, Greek noblewoman, Greek man, Greek woman, Ptolemaic soldier, back with Egyptian hedge, back with Egyptian Idru, I can't pronounce these words, back with Egyptian Norok, back as a Persian commander. Let's do the next tour as Reader, seeing as we meet him quite a few times for his daily stuff. What's the passport? Okay, so this just keeps track of all the tours that we have done. So that's what BCE stands for, before Common Era. Okay. I'm sure BC used to mean before Christ. Is that to be not to offend people? I'm guessing so because that's the way today is. So yeah, that's the timeline, and we're about we're about there somewhere. Anyway, tools. Fine. Let's try a daily life. Holy crap! There's 25 points. Whew. That's a long tour. Let's try this one. Oil in ancient Egypt. A nice short 3-stop tour. I may do the 25.1 next just to get one of the big ones out of the way because there are there are some big tours. So this is Reader from the main game who, when you find him in any of the cities, you can buy the Reader chest, which can have a chance of giving you some good stuff, not always. Or you can do a daily mission for him and have a chance of getting some good stuff. And again, as always. Hello, excuse me. Number of stations 3, region Horasnam. Learn about the cultivation and use of oil in ancient Egypt. Estimated time, 3 minutes. Okie
Welcome to Oil in Ancient Egypt.
Excuse me, thank you.
Castor, sesame, and moringa were the source of the most common oils in ancient Egypt. Oil was used for various purposes: cosmetics, medical treatments, nutrition, perfume, athletics, and rituals, to name a few. The team decided to use oil as an explosive to add more gameplay opportunities for the player.
And to also add an annoying trophy, because there was a trophy for killing, I think it's 10 people by shooting an oil jar with a fire arrow. Oh, that was such an annoying trophy to get. Because we're always finding a place with people stood next to an oil jar for it to be of any effect.
Ancient Egyptians originally used castor oil in wick lamps, but also for cosmetics, such as facial and hair treatments. There is mention in some papyrus of castor oil being prescribed to treat constipation and help pregnant women. Castor beans were found in ancient Egyptian tombs as early as 4000 BCE. Castor oil was made by pressing the beans from the plant of the same name.
Now, as we're doing these, I need to try and keep an eye out for white dots on the floor, because if you go up to one of these white dots, you can kind of like take part in some of the... Did that guy just appear out of nowhere? Him there with the thing on his head. Him. I'm sure he just appeared out of nowhere. Anyway, but yeah, if you find these white dots, you can
Olive trees were
do the activities that I mentioned on that particular point of the tour.
And olives were mostly imported from Syria and Palestine. Their use and cultivation remained uncommon until the mass arrival of Greek settlers during the reign of the Ptolemies, when demand increased sharply. Olive trees were normally found in the region of the Fayum and the lands surrounding Alexandria.
Hey, a nice quick tour done. So I'm guessing all this stuff is oil.
So many tours, so little time.
Okay, thank you, random voiceover lady. That wasn't disturbing at all. Okay, thank you. Alright, so let's find the next tour. Yeah, here we go. Let's do this 25.1. Oh boy. In fact, let's see if there's one that's bigger than 25. If that's the biggest one, then we'll just get that one done and out of the way. I got 20. 22. So look at the Romans. Okay, so the 25 one is the longest one, so we'll get that done and out of the way. So we're off to Memphis. Let's crack the fingers before we start. So far, I'm enjoying this because it's nice to, you know, learn stuff rather than just being all stabby, or in my case, poison darty. One part that I'm looking forward to is, I know there's one at the Sphinx. I'm looking forward to that one. I know I sound like a geek, but yeah, I'm a geek. It's interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Right. Number of stations 25, region Memphis. Learn about the influence of temples in the Egyptian society and the role of the pharaoh and priests in ancient rituals. Estimated time 8 minutes. Oh, that's not too bad. I thought it might have been like say half an hour or something with that many stops.
From its foundation, the city of Memphis favored worship of the god Ptah. The main temple of Ptah was known as Hutkaptah, meaning Palace of the Ka of Ptah. The name of the temple, translated into Greek as Aegyptos, would eventually evolve into the modern name Egypt.
See, that's an interesting fact I didn't know. So, the name Egypt's derived from the Temple of Ptah. See, knowledge is power. So that's one thing I never knew, and now I do.
Temples were the center of religious, political, and economic life in ancient Egypt. These sacred places were viewed as the literal home of the gods and goddesses. As such, every aspect of them required care and reverence, all of which was accomplished through elaborate ritual. Located in the center of Memphis, the Temple of Ptah was the most prominent and imposing building in the city. The long walkway leading toward the temple, known as the Dromos, was guarded by rows of sphinxes. The entire sacred area was designed to keep the statue of the god protected, deep within the sacred enclosures that surrounded it. The Dromos opened into a courtyard, with the surrounding portico graced with columns carved to resemble palm trees. During special festivals, the general population was allowed to enter this location, but under no circumstances would they be allowed into the sacred spaces beyond the courtyard.
Makes you wonder what they had to hide if they weren't allowed into these areas outside the courtyard. Moo cows! Oh, I thought we were going to see a moo cow fight. Yeah.
The Memphis Alabaster Sphinx was discovered in 1912, almost completely buried in water and sand. 8 meters in height and weighing in at roughly 90 tons, it is still mounted on its original pedestal. Though it is called the Alabaster Sphinx, it was in fact carved from common calcite rock, which is similar in appearance and texture to alabaster.
Well, it's preserved well, considering like it was buried for so long. So cool.
Erosion has destroyed the original engravings, making it difficult to determine when it was created. Egyptologists believe that its facial likeness resembles Amenhotep II, and so it could have been sculpted somewhere between 1700 and 1400 BCE. It is believed that this monument once stood outside of the Temple of Ptah and was integrated into subsequent extensions to the complex. The size of the imposing sculpture reflects the importance it had to the temple during the New Kingdom. This Sphinx is one of the few remaining artifacts from the ruins of Memphis to survive.
Get away, chickens, before I eat you.
In Egyptian culture, some animals were associated with gods, while others were considered to be living gods. The Apis bull was believed to be a divine entity. The earliest mention of the Apis bull in ancient Egypt goes back as far as the first Egyptian dynasty. Originally the symbol of fertility, the Apis bull was linked to the god Ra, with the image of the sun carried between its horns. Later it was associated with Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, thus becoming the funerary divinity Osorapis. During the 18th dynasty in Memphis, the Apis bull's association with the city's deity earned it the title Herald of Ptah. The Apis bull was so revered that even Alexander the Great, upon his arrival in Memphis, gave honor to Apis. The Apis bull lived with its harem in a sacred barn located in an enclosure in the Temple of Ptah. Each bull bore 29 signs representative of its divinity. Among them, the bull had an eagle-shaped mark on its back, a double tail hair, and a scarab-shaped mark under the tongue. The signs were intended to correspond with the lunar cycle. After its death, Egyptians would search for its reincarnated form among the livestock.
Hey, Mr. Muko. This was one of the first places you come to in the actual game, I think. Oh, bye, Muko. Bye-bye.
Like other
The hell
living
is that?
divinities, the
Yeesh.
mortal incarnation of the Apis bull was prayed to, and when it died, it was given a luxurious funeral, which included mummification.
Oh, never knew that.
Until the reign of Ramses II, the Apis bulls were buried in individual graves in Saqqara. During the 26th dynasty, the bodies of the bulls were buried in enormous stone vats in the underground corridors of the Serapeum of Memphis.
Well, I've learnt something new again. I never knew the bulls got turned into mummies once they died. Rita, stop pumping, you annoying little brat. How do I guard?
Ancient Egyptians believed that temple rituals were essential to maintain order in the cosmos and allow communication between humans and gods. The pharaoh was required to bring offerings as part of a twofold promise made to the gods: to remain a just ruler and to prevent chaos from entering Egypt.
Sorry.
The details of the ceremonies found on temple walls provide a thorough overview of the stages of the daily ritual. Performed 3 times a day to mirror human mealtimes, each step of the highly symbolic ceremony was accompanied by specific recitations, many of which referred to mythical events. The high priest would first awaken the sleeping god with a chant. Then the seals of the shrine's doors were broken and the bolts drawn back. The act of swinging open the doors was a symbolic gesture where sight was granted to the deity. The priest would then bow and kiss the ground. The god was then washed with incense-infused water and its mouth rinsed with mineral salts. The cleansing was followed by adorning the statue with jewels and royal garments. The final ritual required the priest to sweep away any footprints in order to prevent evil from approaching the god. Heredity was the primary source of new recruits. Rarely was an outsider allowed this position. At the top of the temple hierarchy was the high priest. Each temple dedicated to a god had at least one high priest devoted to its care and service. During the Ptolemaic dynasty, one family held the position of high priest in Memphis for almost 300 years. High priest candidates made their way up the ranks of the temple hierarchy. The one chosen to occupy the lofty position of high priest was usually confirmed by the pharaoh. Several of the high priests were also important officials in the government. Families sharing the highest priesthood titles tended to make many alliances, thereby gaining more land and wealth. Shifting balances of power sometimes resulted in more or less open conflicts between the priesthood and the pharaohs. In the 21st dynasty, Thebes became the capital of an almost entirely theocratic government. The city was headed by king priests who spoke and governed in the name of the god Amun, in open opposition to the ruling pharaohs. These king priests caused a massive decentralization of power, known as the Third Intermediate Period. The educational institution in ancient Egypt was known as the House of Life. Attended by the offspring of the elite and the clergy, it was a place tailored to the social status of its attendees. The earliest references to this type of institution date back to royal decrees of the Old Kingdom. Only two known centers have been uncovered, one in the abandoned city of Akhetaten and one at the temple of Ramses II on the west bank of Thebes. Inscriptions uncovered in those locations mention the names and titles of people who were connected with the House of Life, such as a chief physician and many scribes. It is presumed that by the late kingdom, every temple had a House of Life. The House of Life offered training for the elite, destined for occupations such as astronomers, doctors, veterinarians, diplomats, architects, translators, or theologians. Some institutions focused on specific disciplines, making them a central hub for the country. Not limited to instruction for young students, the House of Life was a source of reference for many scholars, with rooms dedicated to papyri of many disciplines. Because papyri were preserved there, the Greco-Romans referred to the House of Life as a library. Ancient Egyptian economy was based on an unequal system of redistribution of goods. The state of Egypt collected the crops, and the temples distributed them throughout the provinces. Since the only people capable of counting and ensuring a fair redistribution were the educated scribes, this meant that the temples played a pivotal role in this process. records of pharaohs making offerings of large tracts of land and animals to temples in order to maintain their favor. Ramses III offered generous gifts to the Temple of Amun in Karnak in such a manner. Palaces, warehouses, and granaries were built inside the temple compound to better control the redistribution of goods. The size of the recorded numbers of goods, combined with every other function filled by temples, only serves to confirm their might as economic, religious, and political centers of power within Egypt.
And that's the biggest tour
So many tours,
so far done.
so little time.
Okay, creepy voiceover lady, you said that once. Quit it. Let's change the character. So, let's do one as Bayek. So the next tour, let's go for the building of ancient Egypt in Harusnam. Yeah, I can't pronounce these names at times. I'm dumb. Also could have Bayek in my cool outfit that I've got in the main game, but well. The 32nd Dynasty, Egypt's final destiny, was founded by Alexander the Great's general Ptolemy Isota. Building ancient Egypt, number of stations 8, region, that place. Understand the different techniques used by ancient Egyptians to quarry stone blocks and build their monuments. Estimated time, 5 minutes.
Welcome to Building Ancient Egypt. Constructed with bricks made of mud, most ancient Egyptian buildings were not permanent. Only religious temples and funerary monuments were meant to stand the ravages of time. For these very important structures, Egyptians used limestone, sandstone, and harder materials, such as granite, quartzite, and travertine. These heavy stone blocks were so prized that they were often transported from quarries located hundreds of kilometers away. Limestone was common and easy to extract from quarries on the east bank of the Nile. This particular limestone had marine fossils in it, however, preventing it from being easily decorated and polished. Used as the main building material, the structure would then be finished with a finer limestone that was polished smooth and decorated as needed. Limestone was used for the building of the first pyramids and for most of the religious buildings of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Ancient Egyptians preferred to use sedimentary rock beds, or layers like sandstone and limestone, because they were often easier to extract. The common method used to extract stone was the open pit quarry. Stonecutters would find quality stone, shape, and dig it out on site. Open pit quarries enabled many workers to work simultaneously on many blocks, which allowed for better productivity. Workers would draw a large grid directly on the stone's surface, taking care to leave a space between the blocks. This allowed them to isolate the different blocks and create a trench that would make the extraction easier. Stoneworkers used iron chisels for hard rock and bronze or copper tools for softer rocks such as limestone. Removing material between each block created a trench line. In some quarries, that trench was wide enough to accommodate a worker, who would then cut the block entirely on site. For harder rocks like granite, workers cut a series of holes and hammered wooden wedges into them. They then soaked the wood until it swelled, and caused the rock to split. The gallery extraction technique was used when the desired rock was buried under layers of rubble. This method was often necessary in order to find the whiter and finer limestone required for a smoother finish. The first step was for the stoneworkers to create an access pit that would allow them to reach the desired wall of stone. Once a wall of quality stone was exposed, workers could then cut out smaller blocks. This pit required a descending platform. Designed like a stairway, it allowed them to free multiple galleries of blocks. To cut the stone, they created a longitudinal kerf, or slit, and then cut the rock at a 90-degree angle. The lower side was determined along the geological layers or by using a horizontal cut. Wooden wedges were inserted in the rock and hammered in. Shock waves were then generated using hammers, fracturing the blocks at the seam. To maintain the stability of these mining pits over the course of quarrying, workers would leave support sections of unexcavated rock. In every quarry, dedicated shrines were established to offer protection for the workers. In particular, Serket, the scorpion goddess, was considered a very powerful deity among quarry workers. Every mine and quarry of ancient Egypt included a scorpion charmer who was said to use magical powers to ward off the dangerous insects and keep the workers safe. So many tours, so little time.
Okay, Mr. Random Voiceover Guy, we know. Let's change character again before we do the next one. And let's go Caesar. I'm changing the characters each time because there's a trophy for doing 10 tours as different characters, so get that done while I'm doing some. Let's do the next tour. Let's try a Roman one, because I don't think we've tried a Roman one yet. Let's go for the longest one. It's only 5 stops, so it's not too bad. So far, I'm enjoying this. It's pretty good. And the cool thing as well about it is it can be used in, let's say, schools and colleges as an educational tool, because you can just buy the game with just this mode. So, helps learning be more enjoyable. Like, rather than just looking at a boring piece of paper, you're actually kind of living it, kind of. You've seen people going about their business. That's right, I'm Caesar. Do as you're told. Oh, here we go. Roman, gold, aqueducts, right, there we go. Number of stations 5, region Green Mountains. Learn about the aqueducts and water management in Kylo Ren. Estimated time 3 minutes. I can't pronounce that word.
Welcome to Roman Aqueducts.
I don't think I've ever been in this cave. In the game. Wow.
Water
never been in this
management
cave.
was taken seriously by the Romans.
That's
Cyrenaica benefited greatly from Roman administration with the
Wonder what's up
construction
there.
of aqueducts and canals. The source of water varied depending on the location. Many aqueducts were built at the foot of the mountains, offering greater flow from the melting snow.
Okay, I'm just going to do what you're not supposed to do and just wander off the tour for a second, because I've never been. Oh, I'm sorry, lady. You give me Caesar some sass. Yeah, I've I've never been in this cave because I didn't know this cave was here when I was playing the main game, so I'm going to see what's up here. Oh, balls. I know. Yeah. Can I go in this cave? Come on, Caesar. Get up there, you lazy git. Lazy ass Caesar. Okay, so there's a whole cave. That's pretty cool. And in this mode, there's no fall damage, so... Woo! Oh, never mind. Wait, can you drown? Oh, no, so you have infinite air and you can't take fall damage, so... You can just really explore to your heart's content, which is really cool. There we go. So I've done that one. I kind of wish time travel was a thing because I would love to go back to this time and just see it all happening. It'd be so amazing.
The ability to transport water over a greater distance increased agricultural production. Some aqueducts were reported to be over 7 kilometers in length. Where the Greeks of Libya originally focused mainly on olive trees and figs, which required less water, the advent of Roman aqueducts allowed for a far greater crop diversity. Every farm's water use was carefully scheduled.
That's interesting to know. But yeah, if you could go back in time and see these sort of events in real life actually happening, oh, that'd be so cool. Or even if we had, let's say, a holodeck where you could like kind of live this sort of thing out, that'd be so cool as well. But we don't.
Methods used to create aqueducts
And I'm
were
sad
constantly reviewed, with a clear focus on exploiting the local environment. Materials, water usage, cleaning regulations, and a deep understanding of how to exploit gravity itself were all important concerns. Several fortresses were built to protect the aqueducts, basins, and cisterns.
This guy's making bricks, I think. Can I... No? Okay. We've not found any of these white markers yet where you can... Is that one? No, that's not one. Yeah, it looks like the white dot under that guy, but nobody stood on it, and then you can stand on it and kind of take part in doing what the people are doing. But I've not found any yet that I can use or take part in. No? Okay. Oh, wait, there's more here. No.
Additional water was collected with wells and cisterns, but aqueducts were the main supply of fresh water. The water was distributed based on the collective needs of the city, before the private needs of an individual.
Oh, here we go. I found one. Yay! I can interact and do something. Do something. There we go. Oh, Caesar looks sad. Okay. So if you find these white markers, you just stand on them, and then it does whatever.
The water circulated to clean the streets and supply bathhouses and latrines, thus improving the cleanliness of Cyrenaica's cities.
Cool. Let's change character again to a different person. Let's try Cleopatra. And the next tour we shall do Let's learn about crucifixions, because why not? There's Cleopatra, and she's coming at you. Arr, that's a really bad reference to a really crappy song from the 90s. Ay, ay, ay. One Cleopatra. Oh boy, that's the guy who's been crucified over there. Number of stations: 4. Region: Green Mountains. Learn about crucifixion, the most severe form of Roman capital punishment. Estimated time: 3 minutes.
Welcome to Crucifixion.
Okay.
In terms of the severity of Roman justice, crucifixion was at the top of the list of corporal punishment, followed by death by fire and decapitation.
Eesh.
The upper class considered
The Romans were
crucifixion
grim back then.
unworthy of their position. Those lucky enough to have Roman citizenship were also exempt from such treatment.
Also, they just did it to people who weren't Romans.
Easily accessible, crucifixions were popular entertainment among the citizenry.
Wow, they were.
Unlike throwing victims to wild animals, which required an arena, crucifixions did not require any particular setting.
Oh, that poor guy's having a bad time of it. Crucified, and he's been eaten by lions. Damn. The gods must have been pissed at that guy. Boop. You can't touch me because I'm Cleopatra. Boop. Ah, fine. Don't boop then, you git. Okay.
Those subjected to crucifixion were almost always slaves, traitors, and lower-class citizens.
Yeah, the poor, basically.
Roman deserters were crucified because the betrayal of the soldiers was perceived as endangering the lives of Roman citizens.
So there's nothing new from then to today. The rich screwing over the poor. Sounds about right. Stupid rich people. Boo. Seeing all these crucified people is bringing that song to my head. Always Look on the Bright Side of Life from that Monty Python film.
A major slave uprising in
I think it's The Life of Brian.
Repressed by the Roman army. This resulted in the crucifixion of 6,000 men,
Wow,
including
he's a bit
their
cold.
leader, slave and former gladiator known as
He was a bit
Spartacus.
nippy. Yeah, Spartacus, we know he's grumpy. He's very, very cold. He's so cold. So cold. He's in a perpetual state of coldness. Going off that statue. That's why he's so grumpy to everybody. Alright, so change to another character. Let's go for the guy from the first Assassin's Creed games. I forgot his name, but it's his dad. I forgot his name. Is it? No, it's not Norman. I don't know. I forgot his name. Let's go and do this one. We'll finish off this Roman section because they're all quite short and there's only 5 tours, so yeah, get it over and done with. Where's my son? I'm looking for my son. Okie dokie. Alright, so we're in one of these places. Forts of Cyrenaica. Number of stations: 4. Region: Green Mountains. Learn about the fortifications discovered in that place and their purpose. Estimated time: 3 minutes.
Welcome to the forts
Boop.
of Cyrenaica.
Cyrenaica. There you go. I said that. Cyrenaica. Yeah, I know what I'm saying. I don't.
Cyrenaica was a Libyan region under Roman control, gifted to Rome by one of Cleopatra's ancestors. The remains and foundations of ancient fortifications were discovered in the 19th century in the southwest of Cyrenaica, as well as a Roman garrison dating back to the 1st century CE. Evidence shows that these forts were of Libyan origin, rebuilt and modified by Roman engineers when Cyrenaica was part of the empire.
Oh, this way.
Stone was the most commonly used
Behind the
material to build
scenes.
forts in Egypt and Cyrenaica. Though no real proof of a fortress similar to the one before you has been uncovered in that region, the team chose to add it as a worthy and awe-inspiring end-of-game challenge for the player.
Challenge. I did that. It was a piece of piss. Just poison darts. If you throw a poison dart into the right person at the right time, you can take out a huge chunk of the people. So yeah, poison darts in this game are pretty overpowered, and I love it. It's kind of unfortunate if you go to throw a poison dart at a guard in a place with civilians, and then yeah, you can end up killing a lot of innocent people by mistake. Boop. Yeah, deal with it, bish. Stupid Roman.
The forts of Cyrenaica were intended to prevent invaders from gaining access to the main route that led to the country's 5 most important cities.
Oh,
These
there's
forts
Albion
were built
up there,
close
top
to
left.
coastal plains and deserts for added defense. 3 of these cities were recreated by the team: Balagrae, Apollonia, and Cyrene. Had it existed, the fort before you would have protected the road leading to Balagrae.
Yeah, so there's Albion, and then there's something above it, but I can't read it because the little name thing's going over it. The Irene or something. But yeah, Albion, that's a bad drawing. Albion is the ye olde name of England. So yeah, you've learned the facts. There's nothing to do with Rome or Egypt. Boop. Damn you didn't boop. Gate.
Other than reference to an attack around 404 CE and a military reorganization by Emperor Justinian during the 6th century CE, we still know little of the Roman military presence in Cyrenaica.
Well, you best invent time travel, then we can go back and find out for ourselves. Let's go for Layla. The next one is Roman Fort, so let's scooch over there. Ah, this place. Roman forts, number of stations 4, region Marmarica. Learn about the structure and operation of Roman forts. Estimated time 3 minutes.
Welcome to Roman forts. The size of a Roman military camp, known as a castrum, varied significantly depending on how many soldiers it needed to accommodate. However, they all shared common characteristics in design and construction, such as this fort before you, located in Cape Chersonesos.
I was just watching that horse because it kind of looked like it was going to smash into me.
Rectangular in shape, the forts were heavily fortified by ramparts and a ditch system. The walls were reinforced with parapets, essentially an extension at the roofline which allowed a protective barrier for patrolling soldiers. Depending on the availability of materials, some forts were built with stone, timbers, stacked turf, and particularly in the eastern part of the empire, baked brick. Access doors on all 4 sides were each flanked by guard towers. The commanding officer was positioned in the middle of the camp, giving him a clear view of the troops and the main gate.
Hey, there's 2 guards there. What are they sitting on? Because it looks like they're sitting on thin air. Unless there's a chair that's not loaded in. Let's find out. Okay, yeah, it was a bench that hadn't loaded in. I was going to say, they must have really good calf muscles.
Along with sleeping barracks for the soldiers, the fort also had a granary that was expected to hold rations for a year or longer. To ensure the health of the soldiers, every camp was equipped with medical staff and a hospital. A clean water supply with conduits for a bathhouse and latrines was included in the construction of every fort.
And the last one for the Romans is Roman military equipment. So let's go and scoosh over there. Nice shoes, by the way. They're not. Sure, Shosty. Roman military equipment, number of stations 4, region Green Mountains. Learn about the military equipment typical of Rome's armies. Estimated time 3 minutes.
Welcome to
Hello.
Roman military equipment.
Hello, Mr. Roman. Hello. I say the detail on the faces are pretty damn good. Shush, Hossy.
The strength of Rome was directly dependent on its military supremacy and fundamentally militaristic society.
That looks cool.
Regular citizens, comprised mostly of farmers and herders, joined to protect their land and families. In return for their service, members of this civic army were allowed to vote. Trained to be highly disciplined and obedient to superior officers, citizen soldiers developed a deep sense of loyalty to their city. The quality of the armor of a Roman foot soldier was intrinsically linked to his social status and wealth. Chainmail was the most commonly used type of armor. Scale armor, made famous in today's media, came into use after Caesar's time. Foot soldiers carried large and oblong shields, while the cavalry used smaller ones of Greek origin. Soldiers were expected to carry their own kit, including the tools required for the construction of forts and tents.
Hehe. Boop.
Roman soldiers used the same types of weapons. The stomach and face were the most targeted parts of the body. As such, a legionary was equipped with 2 close combat weapons, a dagger and a short sword, known as a gladius. One of the most ingenious Roman weapons was the javelin. Its pyramid-shaped tip pierced the body, while its iron shank was designed to break upon impact, stopping the enemy from throwing it back. During their conquests, the Romans regularly transformed enemy technologies to add to their own formidable arsenal. After capturing a Carthaginian vessel, the Romans adopted its better features and constructed a superior fleet of ships. Adapting heavy artillery designs from Greek models aided the Romans in building catapults and ballistae. The latter became an iconic symbol of Roman warfare.
Let's see who to go with next. Camus? Basically Bayek's son. So we've done all the Roman ones. Daily life. So 4, 10, 7, 6, 14. So far 14 is the longest one. Oh no, we'll go for this 18 just to get some of the long ones out of the way. First jump, if you reach a ledge and Bayek doesn't leap off, you can tap X to encourage him, but be careful though, these jumps can be dangerous. A rare material, wood was a source, was scarce, remember that, wood was scarce, and so when building was abandoned, all wooden parts such as doors and scaffolding were removed to be reused somewhere else. Yeah, good for them. Homer's effect, he liked donuts. Well, baby food, anything they were given. Mummies of Ancient Egypt, number of stations 18, region Memphis, learn about the process of mummification in Ancient Egypt, estimated time 9 minutes.
Welcome
Okay.
to Mummies of Ancient. The mummification process used by ancient Egyptians was highly ceremonial in nature. The different types of mummification took into account the social level and richness of the deceased and even included animals. The most expensive was that reserved for the pharaoh and the royal family, as well as some of the wealthiest members of the court.
So in other words, if you weren't rich, then you can GTFO.
The first step was cleaning. Once bodies arrived
Wow,
at the
that guy's
mummification site,
really pissed
they
at
were
his job. Look
placed
at his
on
face.
reclined tables while the bodily fluids drained
He's
away.
angry.
They were then cleansed by priests until they were deemed ready for the purification process. The purification of the body began with a libation from sacred water.
Oh, he's so
Priests
intense.
fumigated the body with terebinth resin. After the ritual cleansing, priests used oils, spices, and all kinds of essences to further purify the body of the deceased. Finally, all body hair was meticulously removed.
Okay, Mr. Intense, we'll leave you to do whatever you're doing to that poor guy's body.
Once the body was properly purified, embalmers removed the organs, following very specific procedures. First, the brain was extracted by inserting a spoon through the nostril to break the ethmoid bone. Then, using a spatula, the pieces of the brain were removed as thoroughly as possible.
Eesh.
What matter remained was extracted after a process of liquefaction, achieved through the use of a caustic liquid. The cranial box, once emptied, was rinsed and disinfected with palm wine, and then stuffed with strips of linen cloth and liquefied resin.
Hey, we've mashed your brain to pulp and the like, but hey, we put some wine in your head skull, so yay. In the next life, you'll be as pissed as a fart.
After taking care of the brain,
Oh boy.
embalmers made an incision on the left flank and carefully set aside the viscera. The inside of the body was also rinsed with palm wine. Then the embalmers filled the belly with pure myrrh, cinnamon, and other perfumes, and sewed it shut.
Ooh, cinnamon.
The removed
So they
viscera
smelt
were
of
washed in
Christmas.
palm wine and packed in crushed herbs before being placed in canopic jars.
She said herbs, and not the annoying way of Americans who say herbs when I say herbs. It's spelt with a H, Americans. It's spelt with a H. Find anything good? Nah? Okay, we'll leave you to it. Ugh.
Canopic jars
Kitties.
were placed close to the sarcophagus or kept in a chest nearby. At first, the viscera were wrapped in tissue and placed in the vases. As the ritual requirements became more elaborate, ointments, spices, and even water and natron were added to the process.
Uh-huh. You must have loved your job if you did this every day. Ugh.
Towards the middle of the New Kingdom, canopic jars assumed the appearance of the four sons of Horus. They were known as the protectors of the viscera. These protectors had their own guardians, each a goddess of the dead. Imseti, the human-headed god, protected the liver and was protected by the goddess Iset. Hapi, the baboon-headed god, protected the lungs and was protected by the goddess Nephthys. Dumut-Ef, the jackal-headed god, protected the stomach and was protected by the goddess Neith. And finally, Kebesenuef, the falcon-headed god, protected the intestines and was protected by the goddess Selket.
Okay. Still gross though. Eek.
Natron is a naturally occurring mineral found in evaporite. These sedimentary rocks are made up of mineral salts and were generally mined from lake beds in Egypt.
Okay. I thought it was like big piles of salt. So I thought, no.
Embalmers used natron as a desiccant to dry the flesh and stop the corpse's putrefaction process. Once the body was cleansed and eviscerated, the deceased was covered in natron for about 40 days. Once desiccated, the body was prepared to be wrapped in strips of linen.
You've missed his toesies. At the end, they're poking out. Psst, his toesies. Ah, he'll get them later. You've missed this guy's toesies as well, and part of his leg. You suck at your job.
Once the body was fully desiccated by the natron treatment, embalmers oiled, painted, and sometimes even added hair extensions or a wig. They often used a henna-based antiseptic preparation to give the body a more colorful and lively appearance while preparing it to resist molds and fungi.
Hey, even that looks more real than Trump's hair. And that's, well, a couple of thousand years old. Oy vey. Well, you carry on with whatever you're doing there. Mashing something up.
Next came the phase which gave mummies their most well-known appearance, the wrapping. Originally, each part of the body was wrapped separately. Men had their arms crossed on their chests, while women had the right arm folded over their breasts and the left arm stretched along the body. However, techniques evolved over time. Eventually, the body as a whole was wrapped with limbs alongside the body, and increasingly sophisticated and different techniques of weaving flax bands were developed. In addition to the jewelry and amulets arranged on the skin of the deceased, amulets were also carefully inserted into the weaving of the linen strips. Each amulet was linked to a myth, or to an ideological belief related to rebirth. Masks were an important part of a mummy's finery. Early wooden funeral coverings were very expensive, however, and soon replaced by masks created through a technique known as cartonnage. Masks fashioned with this method were created by laying several layers of linen or papyrus pulp on a base made of mud or straw. Cartonnage was used for more than funerary masks. Ornaments and the animal coffins of the late period were also made in such a fashion. Cartonnage evolved to cover the entire body of the mummy during the 22nd dynasty. The mummies were placed on a board inside a rigid envelope of cartonnage, which was laced at the back with a string. Extremely cost-effective and visually pleasing, this technique was very popular through all layers of the society.
It looks pretty cool. Nice and bright and vibrant colours. I like that shade of blue. That's pretty cool.
Cartonnage envelopes were usually covered with inscriptions and polychrome decorations, specifying the names and titles of the deceased, scenes depicting daily life, or decorations specific to the funerary world. This was a true gift for Egyptologists eager to study the funerary rites of the ancient Egyptians. Once the mummy was properly wrapped and adorned, the embalmers proceeded with the ceremony of the opening of the mouth. A vital step of the funerary process, this ceremony was meant to bring back to life the deceased themselves, or an object representing the deceased.
Right, so they thought if someone had died, if you opened their mouth, they would come back to life? Really? Okay, I guess.
There were no less than 75 different stages for the opening of the mouth. It required the application of the same oils, ointments, spices, and perfumes used during the mummification process. Makeup was sometimes part of the process as well.
75 steps to open a mouth. I've got one step. There you go. Just open the mouth. Magic. Magic. I'll just get a whack of, a metal pipe and then just whack it open. Not a pipe, because I don't think they had pipes back then, but you know, a bit of metal something.
The adze, to symbolically allow the breath of life to infuse an inert body. Its performance was reserved for a very specific set of people. Priests who wore the mask of the god Anubis, a close relative of the family, or by the heir to the throne.
That was interesting and also kind of weird. Because I don't get why opening the mouth of a dead guy would make him think it would come back to life. Okay, that lily pad just fell out of the sky for reasons. But anyway, I think that will do for now. I'm enjoying it. And it's more Assassin's Creed Origins, so what's not to enjoy? Let me just check on the passport, see how many we've done. So we've done 5, 6, 7, oh, we've done 10 tours so far, and there's a lot more to go. But some of them are quite short. There's some longish ones, but yeah, most of them are kind of short, so it shouldn't take that long to just blitz through them. So I'll probably do some more of these maybe on Thursday. So yeah, that will do for now. So I shall thank anyone who stopped by to watch, and I shall see you all in the next video. So until then, bye bye for now.